Well, this is Baruch Fleischman, your lift manager here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and after Pesach, I'm anxious to get into a new series that I hope to be able to go through. I've got a really early morning Chavrusa now who wants to go through the Tivach Chaim, but on the Otzrot Chaim. The Otzrot Chaim is a preliminary work, let's say, so to speak. It's actually a composite of one of the three versions of the Eitz Chaim that we have. So there's an Eitz Chaim, which is a complete set of 50 shaarim, and then we have also the Otzrot Chaim. This particular sefer is called the Tivach Chaim, so it gives us a running commentary, what we call a Pirush Rahut, a running commentary on what the Rav is saying. The Rav's language is really very simple, but the concepts are not necessarily so simple. Now let me just give you a little view here of the author of the Tivach Chaim. His name is, can we see it here? There it is Gamliel HaKohen Rabinowitz. And also he says his name was originally Rappaport, but like a lot of people whose families come from Russia, they have more than one last name. So at any rate, he's the author of this commentary. And we use his commentary really on all of the series that we have with the Rav. The Rav is another word for the Uriah Kodesh. So these are the words of the Rav. We're going to skip the first shaar. Not that it's not important, but that shear that I'm working on is moved past this, and I'm trying to be refreshed as much as possible. We're going to move ourselves over. Let me see where I'm going to be. The first shaar is called Shaar HaYigulim. It lays out some basic language of Kabbala. But the main thing to understand about this is this drawing. So most people who have seen, say, Chabad Hasidus, because it goes right into some of these ideas, will see that in fact this drawing really explains a great deal. There are two ways that we have that we can understand the world. That is, the world as created by Hashem. And one way is what the secret of balls or circles. And the world that we live in is a circular world, and the sky that we see up above is circular. All the planets are circular. Then we have another way of being able to look at and understanding things, is that's the concept of the line. So we have a line, and this is infinity. This is infinity coming down in this line, and these are circles. There are two different systems. The Rav only works with the system, Rav mostly only works with the system. That's the line in the middle. Now there's a lot to be said about that, and maybe I'll go back and I'll start it again, but I'm thinking that I need to start from Shaar Tanta. So let's read the top. And we're going to go to a place where I'm at now, which is I'm going to do a review for myself so that I can be prepared for the shear. But we're going to work on the top right now. So Nevayer Ata Inyanim. So there's a concept which is called Tanta. And the word Tanta really means Tamim, Nekudos, Tagim, and Osios. That's Tanta. Now, what I'm saying is that what we need to do as we're learning this material is learn the words and the language of the Rav. So Tanta and the Kabbalists always shorten everything they say. So that if Tanta actually represents 4 different concepts, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to be looking at where this concept of Tamim, Nekudos, which we understand what Tamim are, that's the music of the Torah. Then the Nekudos is the vocalization, the sounds of it. The Tagim are the marks up above letters. And the Osios are the letters. So ultimately what you're doing is you're bringing from the top, that is the Tamim, which is the music, which means Panemius, what's inside, and then going to its vocalization, then going to its pictorial representation, and finally the ultimate picture, which is the letter. So let's read across the top. And then we'll get to the place where we'll start learning these are the words of the Uriah Kodesh as told to Rabbi Chaim Vital. Nivar Ata Inyanim. So now we're going to explain what's going on with Tanta. Da ki ein metzius tzir kumus adam. Understand this. This is the concept that what we have is the form of the statue of a man, ba'olam shalo yihya bo klalos arba bechinus elu. So when we talk about man, and he's going to explain this turns to a spiritual man, he says, Asher kolonim kol atzilos v'kol olamos, that this man that we're talking about, it actually controls all of the olamos. So we can understand the olamos from this man. So he said, V'elu heim, av kazeh. So there's a concept that we understand of the milui of the name Yud Ke Vav Ke is like this. Yud Vav Dalet, Ke Yud, Vav Yud Vav, and it comes out to the gematria of 72. V'shem Sag, then there's another name Sag, which is a gematria of 63, and it's almost spelled exactly the same. So this is, since we are making a video of this, you should be able to just replay it if you want to see it again. He says, so this is spelled the same way, except instead of Vav Yud Vav, it's Vav Aleph Vav, which is nine numbers less, so that becomes 63, Sag. But we pronounce it Sag. Then there's another name, which is called Ma. In other words, these names are called Miluyim. And it's called Yud Vav Dalet Ke Aleph Vav Aleph Vav Ke Aleph. That's Ma. The gematria, Ma, is 45. Then there's the final name, which is Shem Ben. And this is how you write Ben. Yud Vav Dalet, right? This is regular Yud Vav Dalet, but the Hey changes to two Heys. And then the Vav changes, instead of Vav Aleph Vav or Vav Yud Vav, it's now just Vav and Vav, and the letters K and K, and as those letters refer to the name Ben, which is a gematria 52. He goes on and he said, "V'hine elu arba chavayos anisklachos ba'arba miluyim heim." Elu heim. So there are 4 different miluyim. They also could be divided so that you say that this is also called by the name Asmab. That is, all of these names together. That's Av, Sag, Ma, and Ben. It's called Asmab. But those 4 also come in contact with this concept called Tanta. That's what we have at the top of the page here. He says, Bechinas Tamim, they go with the name Av. Bechinas Nekudos, they go with the name Sag. Bechinas Tagim, they go with the name Ma. And Bechinas Osios is the Shem Ben. He said, Call Echad Me'elu Ha'arba Havayos, and each one of these Havayos, Kolu Mekulam, has all of the rest of them in it. For example, there is an Asmab of Av. In other words, it has a Sag in it. There's an Av de Av, there's a Sag de Av, there's a Ma de Av, and there's a Ben de Av. V'yesh b'kol Havaya, mechem bechinas tamim nekudas tagin. So each one of them could be categorized by a Tanta, by this name Tanta, Tamim, Nekudos, Osios, Tagim, and Osios. So let's go on. Oh, so he says it. Excuse me. V'kol echad me'elo arba. Havayos kolam bekulam v'yesh b'kol havaya mechem bechinas tamim nekudas tagin and osios. Okay, I didn't have to say it by myself. He said it for me. Then he says v'hine hakar kafta shel zeh ha'adam. Now he's talking about an Adam which is called Adam Kadmon, the primordial man. Is stated in Kabbala book, so I'll use that word. He says the ha'adam Kadmon. Shuhu Rosho ad makom bechinas aznaim shalom. So if you looked at this man, that you would say let me read it. There's a skull atop of the head. So this original man, Shuhu Rosho, which is his head, and it extends down to the level of his ears. Ad haznaim shalom. So therefore, from this primordial man, which he has explained in other places, that this man is actually a covering of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. But it's built in such a way that we can understand it by looking at ourselves. And this is a phrase that the Rav says quite often. He said, from my body, I can understand what's going on in heaven. But you have to understand what's going on in heaven and how it relates back to the physicality. So he says again, this is what is called Av. This is the letter Av. And it's also the concept of the secret of tamim, shebo keniska, that is in it. If it is that this name by itself, so if you understand that the name Av has an asmab within it, it also has a tanta within it. But going deeper and deeper and deeper in it, the Rav says, let's not talk about it. So even though she'anu korem machnis kinuyim elu, so now we're calling these, we have names now, right? We have Tanta, and we have Asmab, and we have Adam Kadmon. All of these in Kagon Adam, so let's say like it's something has to do with the man, so he has a rosh, and he has ears, and he has eyes, and so all of these other different names that we are attaching to this man, it's only to give you, it means to quiet the questions you may have in your ears. How do we have an ability to be able to understand infinity? Well, we could do it by looking at ourselves. That's what he says. But it doesn't mean to say that there's a man that looks like us someplace. So in order to make everything settle. So therefore, we make these kinuyim, so therefore we're applying this to a levush, a clothing that covers the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, and we said that it has a beginning, it has a middle part, and it has an end, and we're going to go into detail. But he also says that there's different words and meanings that we can apply to this, and one of them is asmab. Asmab has to do with the clothing that surrounds the Ein Sof. And so that we can also say that within the asmab, which you just said, there's an asmab in the asmab. We could go on and on. But also corresponding to the asmab, which is 4 letters, he says there's a concept of tanta, which is tamin, nekudas, tagim, and osios. So all of this goes together. So your job as a listener to this is just to store the idea. You heard the words. It's not an idea that's easy to put together. And the Rab just says, let's not get into it too deeply because you get lost. So he says, Amnam Iker Makom Kinuyim Elu, the main place, the root of where these names come from, from a place called Olam Hatzilus. Hatzilus means Etzel. That means that Olam, that series of lights that is closest to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Shuhu min Eric and Arich, the Hatzilus Lamata. So now we have another couple of words here. So in Silus, which is that parts of, or that system of light that is closest to the Ein Sof, it's also, and sometimes it's called Erich Anpin. So here's the word Arich. It's an abbreviation, the Hatzilus Lamata. The Kabbalist, the Rav, uses abbreviations every place. So as you go from that place going onward, Yesh Bechinas Partsav. There you have the concept of a Partsav now. So Partsav, what is a Partsav? So here's another word. Partsav is a system of processing light to make it smaller, to make the light less, so that as it continues down, it becomes more and more physical, because the Ein Sof Baruch Hu is nothing. But from that place going upwards, Ein Bechinas Partsav Klal, there is no concept of a Partsav. Rak l'shakek chasa'oizen, only in order for us to have some settlement in our mind, a place, I guess, what's the right word? A base from which to try to understand the relationships of the beyond. Anu mechanim elu kenuyim elu. So this is where we use these names. So he says like this, if you look at the ears now, so he said that where we have the concept of Av is from the ears upwards to the top of the head. And we really don't discuss it because it's just beyond us. But over here, from the ears going downwards, then it's more physical, a little more tangible. Naskil levoyer bekitzer nimrat. So let's go through this real quickly, the Rav says. Daki min ha'aznayim lamata. So he says like this, from the ears going downwards, maskil shem sag shabo. That's where you see that the name sag begins. In other words, this is the name, where you look back at the previous, and you'll see that it is Yud Vav Dalet, K Yud, Vav Aleph Vav, K Yud, comes to gematria of Sag, which is 63. Kuvard is Boyer. So now we have to understand ki gam hu kalo metamin nekudas tagin genoisi. So also the name Sag has a tanta within it. V'das, so know this. Ki la'olam, he says what? Where am I? Ki la'olam hatamim v'nekudas nechlochen v'shlosha cholukim. So now let's just look at the tamim and the nekudas. What do you know about tamim and nekudas? So he says ki yesh bechinas tamim v'nekudas lamalo. So up above the letters, there are tamim and nekudas up above the letters. Al gabe ha'oz, they're on top of the letter. V'chein yesh l'mata min ha'oz. There's also the tamim and nekudas that are down below. And also be'emtza ha'oz. So also in the middle of the letter. Now the Tiv goes into this and explains it out again. But we're going to keep going on. So he said, V'hinei or ha'panimi shebetoch zeh ha'adam. So he says the internal light that is in this Adam Kadmon, Yotzu l'chutz derek kol ha'nekovim ha'nizkarim. So what it is like this, the light of the Ein Sof actually can come through the Adam Kadmon because the Adam Kadmon has eyes, ears, nose, and a mouth. He says, so to speak, kol ha'nekovim ha'nizkarim lamala, we may have mentioned previously in this drush. V'hinei ha'hevel, so then there is some vapor or something that comes through these openings in the head. Hayotze min harosh derek nikveh ha'sa'aru shalo. So I think he's changing it slightly. He says that the vapor that comes out, let's say some kind of heavier air that comes out through the head, through the hair follicles or the openings, the pores of the hair follicles. Kavar amarno la'elo, apparently that we talked about previous to this. Shein ana rishayim klal hisasek bo. So that's what he said previously. So from the ears going upwards and getting on top of the head now, and looking at there's some kind of a light that comes out of the head of Adam Kadmon. He said that this light, or whatever we might want to call it, he calls it a hevel. He says we don't talk about it. But let's start talking about there is a certain amount of hevel that comes out from the ears. And the ears, once again, we said, and going downwards is the name Sag. So he says, as you go through the openings of the ears, Shabo Yotze or Hapanimios Adam Kadmon. Once again, the Adam Kadmon is the concept of a clothing created by the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, as it's possible to say that suppresses some of the light of nothingness of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. So he says, Adam Kadmon is there. And he says you have to understand like this: as the light of the Ein Sof goes out, it gets a little bit thicker. So it comes out like this, that the light that comes out from the inside of Adam Kadmon, is greater than the light that comes out. Who Yoser Godel, greater than the light that comes out, goes out. Of Avada, that is what's inside of Adam Kadmon, is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. What comes out of Adam Kadmon is already thicker. So he says, who Yoser Godel Bezecha Ba'ola Yotze B'menet Lochotz. That is the light inside. It's a much more powerful light. It's the light of the Ein Sof himself. But it's for sure that the light that comes out now, who Yoser Godel Bebechinas Kalim, it's greater than another concept that we want to talk about, which are vessels. V'haguf, and the body, Shal Adam Kadmon Hazeh, V'zeh Pashut, and this should be simple to understand. Now there's much more to be said about that by the Tiv, but I'm going on in this introductory shiur as I'm going to try to get to the next place, and we'll see how it goes. So let's just read over here, and then we'll be working on the Tiv as we finish. This is a little bit longer shiur than I anticipated. Let's see how it goes. As the light comes out through these openings of the ears, then you have a right ear, Yamonis, Vesmolis, and a left ear. So the lights then start going out. Mimakom aznayim, from the place of the ears, ad makom shavulas zakan. So the light that comes out of the ears actually has a little spread to it. Comes out of the ears and goes all the way down. Shavulas zakan is another word for the chin. The nimshku, but his pashtus his pashtus derek ser hazakan hatzameach belachayim b'tzadei upon him. So it extends down, expands itself opposite the area of the beard, chazakan, which is growing belachayim, on the cheeks, so to speak, of this Adam Kadmon, b'tzadei upon him, on the sides of the face. Ukenegdo, and corresponding to this, nimshach his pashtus ha'or chazer, we have now a concept of the spreading of this light, at shemigil lamata, until it reaches the place down below, which is the shavulas hazakan. So this light from the ears extends all the way down to the beard. V'sham nischavro yachad, so then you have a right side and a left side, and there they join together. Ha'orish hayotzim in shnei nikveh haznayim, the lights that come out from the two openings of the ears. Amlam, what we see, lo nischavro chibur gamor, but they don't make a complete and total joint together. Aval nishar benehem chalel moy, but there's a little separation, a little empty space. So you have the two sides of this beard of Adam Kadmon almost coming together, coming out of the ear. This light is coming out of the ears. It's dense, a little bit more dense. And let's go on. But the light that comes out of the ears is really doesn't actually attach itself to the face. But it actually surrounds it. It's like a sukkah over it. And this light does not spread. Upon him, not to the back side of the face. Upon him. It doesn't go all over the face either. Rat b'stadi upon him, only on the sides of the face. Bilvad kenisker, only that. So this, now you're going to understand something else. When we talk about the face, now here are more words, more concepts that we have to take in regards, and this is what you get from the Otzrot Chaim. He says, when we think about the head, we're not talking about now notice I pronounce this word ach. This is the way I was taught. When you talk about the concept of the acharayim, the back, it's a place of darkness and din, because the light is really all in the front. So therefore they abbreviate it, because this is considered to be the side of darkness. They won't let us know that. We're not talking here about the concept of a face and a back of the head. Because he says like this. Let me see if I translated this right, but I think we'll get the idea. He said the feet if you're looking at the back of the head, he says there are no openings there. So if there was possibility, then the light would always be all around the whole head. But when you're looking at it and you're just looking at the ear and then going downwards, because now we have the concept of panim v'ach. So what he basically said was, if the light is all the way around, there's no difference between the front and the back. But if you only have the light in the front, then you're creating a system of opposites, because the light is only one place. And understand that the beginning of this is talking about the beginning of creation. And the first aspect of creation that the Rav wants to teach us about is that these different words making a position automatically implies its opposite. Now you have the concept of panim v'ach. He says, ki hametzach nikra panim, because of the forehead, which is full of light, is called panim. V'oref nikra ach, and then the back of the neck is called ach. The Fisha called in the cover because all of these opening mamshichem ha'oros l'chutz derek upon it, because all of the openings in the face. Let me see. I'm sorry. Let me read it again. He says the Fisha call hanekavim. All of the openings are in the front of the face. Mamshichem ha'oros l'chutz derek upon it. So all the lights that come out, that are extending out from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, are coming only on the front. So now we have a concept of front and back. So where there's no openings, it's called ach. So from with all of this, from the radiance that comes from this light, so there is actually, it comes out, it spreads to the back as well. But the main root of the light, Eneno rak masha keneged ha'ozen, is only that part which is on the front of the face, keneged derek kaponin, that goes onto the face side, ad shevolas zakan, and spreads all the way until you get to the beard, the chin of the chin. That's it. Okay, now we're coming close to where I'm going to pick up the tiv. There'll be in another shear, but let's finish this shear, and it says like this: V'hinei bezel ba'or yesh bechinas eser sfiros shleimus ba'ofen zeh. Here's a new word. The word is spheros, and it has the concept of eser, 10. So when we're looking at this light that's coming out of the ear, it has actually 10 different positions, which are called spheros. Ki ma'ozen yamem nimshachas eser spheros bebechinas or makif. And now he says like this, a new concept, a concept which is called or makif, surrounding light. That comes out from where? It comes out from the right side. Wherever you see the right side, it's always the side of preference. It's the preferable side. So more makif, we haven't really just talked about that yet, and we will. Ume'ozen small nimshachas eses spheros. But here you have 10 spheros come out, and it's called the or panimi, an interior light. V'shtei ha'oros, and these two lights, Bechinas elu, heim spheros shlemos. They're complete and total spheros. Now this is where the shear ends, and we're going to pick it up on the other side in the next year. This is Baruch Fleischman. Next time we're going to be learning with the tip.